President.
The Republican leader.
I ask consent that further proceedings on the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Yesterday, FDIC Chairman Martin Greenberg announced he was prepared to step down from his position and expressed pride in maintaining public confidence in the nation's banking system. Unfortunately, there is little such confidence in his ability to foster a safe working environment for the agency's employees. But despite alarming reports about rampant sexual harassment, abuse, and retaliation at the FDIC, Senate Democrats in position to insist on change have actually pulled their punches. Instead of calls for Mr. Greenberg's prompt resignation, we've heard everything from confidence in his ability to lead charge at the agency to delicate suggestions that the president nominate a new chair. The senior-most members of the Banking Committee apparently can't bring themselves to call a spade a spade. Surely their reluctance has nothing to do with FDIC's line of succession, which would fill a vacancy with the agency's distinguished vice chair, who happens to be a Republican. Surely our colleagues won't play politics in the face of such glaring failures of leadership at a major regulatory authority. The Senate's oversight responsibility is serious business. I hope our colleagues in the majority are up to the task. On another matter, yesterday the Democratic leader once again tipped his cap to President Biden for what he describes as many actions in recent weeks to secure the southern border, which leaves me with a couple of questions. First, what took the president so long? And second, why isn't he taking the actions we know would actually begin to address the crisis that he actually invited? The reason I ask is because time matters here. The cost of an average day of avoidable crisis at the border is measured in thousands of apprehensions of illegal arrivals and the interdiction of lethal drugs like fentanyl. And if that's not alarming enough, consider the story reported earlier this month of the catch and release of a military-aged male who spent 2 years free in the interior of the country before he was detained for alleged affiliations with ISIS-K. Of course, everything I've mentioned so far, we only know because the Border Patrol was able to stop it. But think about what border officials know they're not catching: the known gotaways. For 10 years before President Biden took office, under administrations of both parties, an average of about 125,000 people per year successfully crossed the southern border and escaped into the interior. On the Biden administration's watch, in fiscal years 2021 through 2023, the average tally of known gotaways is 550,000. From 125,000 to more than 500,000. President Biden's press secretary says this administration has, quote, done more than anybody else, end quote, to secure the border. But if you wanted to make that claim true, you'd say this president has done more than anyone else to make the tough jobs of CPB and other law enforcement personnel even tougher. In fact, one sobering new report suggests that contending for years with a historic humanitarian and security crisis without effective enforcement authorities is taking a heavy toll on the men and women of the Border Patrol. The rate of suicide among CBP personnel is 3 times higher than it was a decade ago. As one agent told reporters, quote, "When it turned out that the job became nothing more than processing and releasing these people, that was very, very hard to take." Going soft on border security may have started as just a short-sighted campaign strategy, a reckless debate stage promise to surge asylum seekers to the border might have been just a cynical play to court left-wing voters. But after 3 years on the job, President Biden's failure to perform one of the most basic functions of his office isn't endearing. It's not some impressive sign of left-wing bona fides. It's a glaring, avoidable failure, a profound moral embarrassment, and even Washington Democrats are beginning to recognize it as a tremendous political liability. The American people are telling poll after poll that they're alarmed by the border crisis and want to see real solutions. Fortunately, the quickest way for the president to start undoing the damage he invented is to restore and use the authorities he already has at his disposal, like remain in Mexico and border wall construction. And any of our Democratic colleagues who recognize that the president must act ought to start telling him so. It's time for the Biden administration to start exercising its immense authority to restore sanity and start cleaning up the mess at the southern border. The time for distractions is long, long past. On one final matter, speaking of failure to discharge basic responsibilities, the Biden administration's Department of Education. Around the country, high school seniors and their parents are still reeling from delays and processing errors in a botched rollout of the free application for federal student aid. Families have had to make tough decisions ahead of enrollment deadlines with incomplete information. One such parent described the frustration she and her daughter were facing back in April. Here's the quote. "She's supposed to decide by the end of the month and pay her housing deposit, but we can't commit to anything until we know what the financials look like." It certainly makes one wonder, what are all those bureaucrats at the Education Department up to if they can't complete a fundamental part of their job? Unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, the answer seems to be spending time and taxpayer dollars on activities that run contrary to the department's mandate. The rest of these activities, as I've discussed before, is student loan socialism. Of course, the Supreme Court made it clear that this scheme is illegal, and basic common sense tells us it is profoundly unfair, both to folks who opted not to pursue a four-year degree and to those who worked through college and paid their own bills. But President Biden has continued undeterred. Last month, his administration proposed a new rule to allow the Secretary of Education to cancel additional student debt for certain borrowers. It's estimated that this will cost taxpayers nearly $150 billion. But the department's illegal nonsense doesn't stop there. Unelected bureaucrats are also trying to rewrite Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. The Biden administration apparently wants to take a law that was designed to promote equal opportunities for women in education and make it do the exact opposite. This rule would require states and educational institutions to abandon biological sex as the determinant in program decisions and to use so-called gender identity instead. And institutions that refuse to comply would lose access to federal funding. More than 25 states have already sued to overturn this absurd rule, but the damage to the Department of Education's reputation is already done. High school seniors and parents have already had to make college choices without crucial financial aid information. Working taxpayers are already footing the bill for the highest earning segments of Washington's Democrat base. And laws that enacted protections for women are already being used to violate those same protections. It's shaping up to be a banner year for Biden administration bureaucrats.